Where next for gold? Gold has obviously hit the headlines of late. I've got a daily chart up of gold. If we put this onto a monthly, you really start to see this wonderful rally that gold's had this year. It's up to what, 32, 33% on the year. Silver even more in percentage terms. So where next for gold? What are the considerations and what you should be wary of? Okay, so gold at the moment, from a technical perspective, sitting at what, 27 and a half or 2,750. There's a lot of chatter, including myself in my community, about the potential for gold to edge towards 3,000. However, we do have to be a little bit careful as well. And I'm going to explain why we have to be a bit careful. Don't get me wrong, I'm a bull on gold. I've been a bull on gold for a long time now. Really, in our community, we've been gold ever since this cup and handle pattern formed. So this is the cup and handle on the monthly chart. Really, it formed here into 22, 23. So we had this technical level across here. It's a classic technical analysis pattern, and then we had the breakout here. It gives an upside projection in that zone up there in the upper 2000. So we're nearly there into that area as far just as purely as far as projections are concerned. Obviously 3000 is the big round number, so it's a big psychological level. There are some buts to come in with this. So there's a few things to cover off. We're going to look at what the sentiment is, what the sentiment's like in hedge fund community and large speculator hedge sentiment. Not retail. We're not interested in what retail are doing. We're talking about the main drivers, and we're also going to look at general sentiment as well. So from a technical perspective, yes, gold has the potential, especially I'm recording this Saturday morning. We've just seen more strikes there, Israel striking Iran overnight. And so you don't know how much more of a premium gold is going to get in the near term, depending on what goes on there in the Middle East as well. But whatever way we slice it, the sentiment is starting to get a little bit frothy. So, for example, Goldman Sachs, I believe, and some of the investment banks have been talking about gold going to 3,000. Now, what so often happens is when some of the big investment banks say that sort of stuff, usually it doesn't happen. Now, the cynic in me, and in many of us, would be that if they are saying 3,000, it probably means that they just want some liquidity so they can be selling somewhere close to that. So they still need enough buyers to be coming in to satisfy their selling. So the cynic in you could look at that. We've seen it over the years. We've seen Goldman again. You know, remember, some of you will remember when they talked about oil going to $200, and that never happened. And anyway, so a little bit of cynicism there when some of the investment banks start talking about $3,000. If they were saying no, it's not going to go, I'd be a lot more bullish. But I am a bull structurally for the long term of gold, very much so. What I'm talking about at the moment is that there's going to be ebb and flow. So if we come back to the monthly chart, before I go back to that sentiment, we can see just by looking at the chart, okay, it's had a very good run at some point, and we never know where a market is going to top, of course, especially in a very strong bull market. Bull markets can run far further than you think. So I think anyone who's been long gold or holding gold ETFs and stuff, I think it's a great longer term. It looks great over the longer term, of course. But what we're talking about here is just for the interest of, well, could gold maybe come a little bit higher? Maybe it gets close to that 3,000 or so, and then take a breather. So that's what we're talking. And so we're looking out for signs of a market potentially getting a bit frothy, and from a sentiment perspective, and usually when the sentiment starts getting frothy, we're getting closer to some form of high where the market takes a bit of a breather. One thing that I'll bring to your attention here when we're looking at the monthly chart, and people think, oh, it can't possibly go any higher. Well, if I just take this back maybe just a couple of months, if I put this into replay mode and just take this back a couple of months or so ago, a lot of people would have been thinking here, oh, it can't possibly go higher, and yet they do. And so when you're looking at stuff in real time, you think, oh, it can't possibly go higher. And if I take something like, and I go back to maybe here back in 2010 before that final leg higher there. So if I where was I? Yeah, let's take it to there. Again, at that point, you're thinking, oh, I can't. Yeah, it can't possibly go any higher. It had one down month and then carried on going. So I think where's that? Let's just take that back again. It was just here, one down month and then just carried on exponentially going higher. So this is why I'm talking about this from an interest perspective of the nearish term. At what point could gold top out? So the ingredients aren't quite there yet, but we are seeing some signs. So firstly, we're seeing a lot of chatter in the press. So you're seeing articles like in the Daily Telegraph here, gold stratospheric rise signals disaster ahead for the world's financial order. Wow, now that's a headline, isn't it? But it is the Daily Telegraph. But there's been a lot of chatter in the financial press talking about gold, because that's what happens when a market has a great run. It attracts financial journalists and people to comment on it. I'm doing a video on the thing right now. In my community, we've just been bullish on it for the last 2 years. But of course, it's now becoming attractive to the mainstream media, financial press, etc. So that's one thing to be a little bit careful of once the mainstream media start talking about gold. That so often, why is it the case that once the mainstream and it becomes visible to the mainstream and to the masses out there, why does that so often mean that a market's about to top, at least for the meantime, for a period? The old saying goes that if everybody's in, who's left to buy? So once it gets out to the masses and your mainstream media are talking about this, and you've got mum and pup America or UK or Europe, wherever, thinking, oh yeah, we really should buy some gold. So by the time that information is coming out to the masses, and then they are then, oh yeah, we should buy some gold. They buy some gold. Who's left after that to be buying? And that's what helps create tops if there's no more buyers. Now, like I said, I'm not looking for any major top in gold. And so, but I'm just saying that we're probably getting closer, certainly from a sentiment perspective, to some form of high. Now that bit closer might still be closer towards 3,000, and so the ingredients aren't there. And I'm not saying to short this market because it's very much in a bull market. I'm just saying we may be getting closer. We've got upside projections on those monthly patterns there, and a big round number, like we keep saying, at 3,000. I'm not saying that gold has to get to 3,000. It might go to 2,900, something like that. But the sentiment backdrop is building. Let's go and have a look at, for example, hedge fund positioning. So it gives us this chart here shows us the commitment of traders report, showing us what large speculators are doing in the market as far as their positioning is concerned. So this is their position, their net positions. So as we can see, they're net long somewhere around 300,000 contracts. Okay. So prior positional highs were back in 2020, COVID, and back in 2016. So as far as positional highs are concerned, we're not at new extremes as far as positioning, considering gold itself is at new all-time highs. But we could do. There's nothing to say that positioning couldn't. It just jumped up a little bit just this past week. And if gold continues to march higher into the 2,800, 2,900, 3,000 area, it will be interesting to see from a positioning perspective if the fundies and the large speculators increase their positions to such a degree that they breached the new highs. What does that mean? Well, it just tells us that they're fully loaded themselves. And quite often when they get fully loaded, one way or another, at a new extreme, whether it's a low down here or a prior high, that quite often we're getting closer to that frothy stage where a market's going to take a breather. So just something else to consider when it comes to the sentiment out there, that even with the large speculator hedge fund community, once they're all on the same side of things as well, we're getting closer to some form of high. So the things to look out for are not at the moment. Necessarily, it could be that gold's very close to a high. Actually, maybe it is about to top out right now and take a breather. That's what we're talking about. But personally, I would be looking out for, on the commitment of traders, to see if positioning moves higher over the weeks or so ahead. Gold getting that little bit higher. It may be that it's near, who knows, like I said, we may be topping out anywhere right now, but I would prefer to see if gold can get closer to that 3,000. What I'm trying to say is, if we do get closer to 3,000, then keep your eye on the sentiment, because the sentiment will just get continually more frothy, more chatter about how well gold's doing. Projections will then start going out to $5,000 an ounce and all sorts. And it's not to say, who knows, that gold doesn't go there at some point in the future, in the years ahead. But markets do like to breathe in and out. So if the sentiment gets too frothy and we see positioning getting frothy, then then you couple that with technical patterns that may be like coming in as technical sells up and around that area, well, it may be a good place to bank some profit, or at least say, maybe now's not the best of times to buy, I'll wait for the next pullback. So there's my overall thoughts today, something a little bit different with regards to gold, because from a sentiment perspective, we're seeing a lot of frothiness as far as financial media, general chatter is concerned. Talk is getting a lot of attention, quite rightly, and I am a bull and have been for the last couple of years. But coming back out to the monthly time frame, there's nothing to say that we couldn't at some point in the next month or two. We've got a seasonally bullish time of the year coming up, so I'm not looking for a top literally immediately, but I'm just saying the ingredients are there for, at some point, possibly in the next couple of months, for gold to take a breather. But when it does take a breather, I think that could be, depending on how much, if it does take a breather, how much it pulls back, that could be a great buying opportunity at some point there as well. But when everybody wants in, it's probably a good time to be looking the other way. Enjoy your weekends. I'll see you next week.